Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. It's from a guy, he is in his early 50s, and he's going to share his story about events that happened almost 30 years ago, back in the 90s, with his first fiancée. And he shares his story, how he meets this woman. In the beginning, everything is great, as these things always go. And not to mention the fact that she's beautiful. Rushes in to have her move in with him too quickly, gets engaged to her too quickly, and as you can imagine, when you rush in with a woman, don't fully get to know her, problems can arise. And I might add, this guy, who's a good man, was in an era where he really thought that she's my fiancée, so I should always do all these really nice things for her, a little too nice. And you start to see that her behavior reflects that, in terms of he's being more giving, he's being the giver, and she's being the taker. And as time goes on, this gets worse and worse. And you're going to see what happens when she falls under the influence of one of her coworkers. And let's just say it gets worse and worse. But this guy, he takes a lot of this. And not very good. But to a point you see where she crosses the line. And then this guy shows her his hand. This guy shows her, you do not cross me, and she learns the hard way. But there are many lessons in this story, guys, I want to point out that you're going to see along the way, because I use these stories as a teaching tool. One, putting the girl on the pedestal and treat her like the queen, being too giving, too nice, all that, bad idea. Never ends well. Two, always pay attention who she hangs out with. If you notice that person has issues, you need to pay attention and handle it accordingly, because otherwise it's going to reflect on her negatively towards you and your relationship. And of course, the lesson about rushing things in relationships, and also being strong as a man, setting boundaries, and not letting a woman cross them, because if you don't stand up to her and don't set boundaries and act like a man, she's going to lose respect for you and treat you like crap. But again, as you're going to see in the end, this guy's the last laugh, and believe me, he shocks her and she deserves it. So, starts off, he says, hello SSM. I'm a guy in my early 50s who loves the channel, and I wanted to share a story that took place when I was in my late 20s. It was the late 90s, and I was 3 years out of college and had landed a really good job. Kelly was working as a receptionist in the same building that my company was located. She was beautiful, blonde, with a lot of fun personality. That's usually how those blondes go. We started dating, and it seemed like a perfect match. I think that was wishful thinking, and I think you were mesmerized by her beautiful face and body and all that. After a little over a year dating, she ran into problems with her roommate and started hinting at moving in together. Hinting, that's how it works. So, how were these problems arising? Let me guess. She probably made out to be that her roommate was the cause of all the problems. I have to wonder, did you question that? I was already thinking that she might be the one, and I was doing really well financially, making about 3 times her salary. I spent the last 3 years paying off my student debt and been wanting to finally purchase a home. Very smart of you, brother. She ended up moving in right away after the closing and helped me pick out furniture and decorations. Smack. You've been dating her like a year, and now she's moving in? Too soon. I don't care if she's having issues with her roommate. She can figure it out, because if you weren't there, she would have figured it out herself. Too soon. The only reason you should move in with a woman if you are absolutely sure you want to marry her, and he says he thought she was the one, but also after you've been together for a while. 1 year isn't shit, in my opinion. And a lot of these stories prove that. You need a lot more time to really see what she's like, what her personality is like, how she handles situations. You know, because 1 year, you could technically still be in the honeymoon period where she's putting up to her best self for you and putting on a whole freaking show. Some women can put up that whole show for years until they say I do. So, too soon, my man. And again, I'm not trying to be hard on you. I'm just using this as a teaching tool to help the guys out watching this. Anyhow, they move in together. And she starts helping him pick out furniture and decorations. We were getting along great, and I ended up proposing to her on Christmas Eve after living together for about 1.5 years. Smack. So another 2.5 years and you're proposing. Again, too soon. And you're going to see I'm right here. Prior to our engagement, she would offer to pay some of the bills every now and then, but that soon tapered off. Huh, imagine that. She's got a ring on her finger. She got you to propose to her. Why should she have to pay for everything now? Or pay for her fair share because, hey, she's paying for it in other ways. This is a sign of what's yet to come. I didn't mind that much because she was doing the majority of the cooking and cleaning. I ended up buying a new car for her, smack, to drive when hers finally died, and never once asked her to make the payment. Now, let me make this clear. This guy's obviously a good guy. And he's old school in the sense that he wants to do things for his lady, and he believes that she's the one, and all that, and does all the things that, a guy in love would want to do. And in a perfect world, you could do all these things, and she'd reciprocate and all that, and you live happily ever after. The problem is, when a guy is too much of a giver, and she's a taker, it's only going to get worse and worse. And sadly, the gal will lose respect for the guy and think, well, if he just keeps giving and giving, and I'm a taker, and he doesn't draw a line in the sand or check me, well, I'm going to lose respect for him and pull more bullshit. About almost a year into our engagement, she started hanging out more with a girl named Erica that she worked with. Uh-oh. I'd only met Erica at a couple of times, but Kelly had mentioned that Erica thought the idea of her taking my last name after marriage was degrading to women, and Kelly asked how I would feel about keeping her last name. Here we go with the testing and the issue about her watching out who she hangs out with. We got ourselves a late 90s effeminist. I said that I would want my wife to have the same last name as me and my children, and that I was not flexible on that. Kelly pushed back a little, but finally dropped it. Good. This is an example, guys. He stood his ground. Lie in the sand. Oh, no. You're taking my last name. We're getting married, and the kids will have my last name as well. And that worked temporarily in terms of him drawing a line in the sand. The problem is, this guy doesn't draw the line in the sand enough. Over the next couple months, my fiancée kept making remarks about not wanting to lose her independence after we were married, and other stuff that she would talk to Erica about. Sounds like Erica, not only being an F-ness, is not very happy in her life, so she's got to go screw up everybody else's lives. This is why I tell you about watch out who your girl hangs out with. I was starting to think that Erica was making me out to be the bad guy. You think? When I was doing everything in my mind and my power to make my fiancé happy. Unfortunately, my fiancé started hanging out with Erica more and more outside of the office, and things seemed to worsen. Notice what we just said there. Doing everything in my power to make my fiancé happy. What happens, guys, in all these stories I go over, stories or articles or personal stories you guys send, when the guy does everything in his power to make his girl happy? Is she ever happy? No. Is he happy? Hell no. When guys are making the girl the center of their universe, instead of making their purpose the center of the universe and themselves first, that's a problem, because a lot of women take advantage of it. It's sad, but again, human nature is human nature. Female nature is female nature. He put her on a pedestal, kept doing all these things to make her happy. I don't see or hear anything about how she was doing it in a different way, and how I didn't hear anything about her reciprocating in a similar manner. None. He's doing all the giving, and she's doing all the taking, and more BS. That's the problem, guys. It's okay, like I said, if it's reciprocated, treats you like the king, okay, then you can be good to your girl. Anyhow, one night, Erica and Kelly were going to have a girls' night out. And Erica picked Kelly up at our place around 8 p.m. and they said they would be back at midnight. Neither of us owned cell phones back then, and I didn't hear from them until about 2:30 in the morning when I hear a car pull up into our driveway. I look out the window and I see Erica's car and what looks like to be 4 people in it. My fiancé gets out of the back seat and comes in the house, but the car just sits in the driveway. So she was supposed to be out, come back around midnight, but it's 2:30 in the morning, she's still out. That's rude, that's inconsiderate, no phone call, not letting him know that she's okay. Remember, this is the woman he's going to marry. The woman that, in my opinion, he rushed into things, getting to know her very well. The woman, in my opinion, he was too nice to, too giving. Look what we have here. Disrespect. And it's going to get a whole lot worse. I sit in our room, waiting for her to enter, but I can hear her in the kitchen doing something. So I walk in, and she's actually making sandwiches. When she sees me, she was startled and appeared a bit tipsy. I ask, "What are you doing?" And she tells me that she's having a sleepover at Erica's, and she was just getting a few things before they head over there. I ask her who the hell is in the car. And she kindly mutters that it's Erica's friend that she ran into at the bar. Oh, and what is this friend's name? And does this friend have a Johnson? Because I'm willing to bet you he does. And again, she was just going to not show up and just not tell him at all that where she was going to be, letting him worry about her? Does her action show that she's deeply in love with this guy, respects him? Nope. I said, it looks like there are 3 people in the car and you have 4 sandwiches made. She said, oh, that's just a friend of the guy Erica is with. At that point, I said, I'm not comfortable with my fiancée heading over to Erica's place with 2 guys. Not going to happen. Kelly agreed and said that she would go tell them without her, to go without her. At this point, I was still pretty pissed off that was even a suggestion. So Kelly goes outside with the sandwiches, and about a minute later comes back in with Erica. Oh boy. So she's going to bring in her obviously drunk, effing friend, who has a problem with him, trying to sabotage the relationship. How do you think this is going to go, guys? I could hear Erica's loud, drunken voice coaching Kelly as they come up to the door. Kelly walks in and says, I promised Erica that I would stay the night, and I shouldn't have to break that promise just because you are uncomfortable. Twist it around and make him to be the bad guy. Again, they're going to be married. This is a few decades ago, so he has a right to have a say in all this and say, hey, this is what I'm not marrying this, okay? You shouldn't want to do these things, let alone try to tell me what you're going to do here, okay? This is not what I want to marry. This is not what I want as a wife. So if you're going to go do this stuff, well, this ain't going to work. But no, you're not going to do this. She says here, at this point, I said, you also promised to be home by midnight. That's when Erica opened her big mouth and said, she's a grown-ass woman and doesn't have to have a curfew. I didn't even answer Erica, and I just looked at Kelly and said, it's late, and you've both been drinking, and this isn't something that should even be in a question. Exactly. And by the way, Erica, get the hell out of my house. And I'd say, hey, okay, she's a grown-ass woman. She can go do that. And tomorrow, when she gets back, her stuff will be on the front porch, and we're done. And give me my freaking ring back, because this is not what I'm going to marry. Just then, Erica starts in with the she's not your property BS. So I look Kelly straight in the eye and say, if you get back in that car, it's over. Well, that would turn out to be a life-changing moment for me, as she turned out and walked towards the door. I actually panicked for a second and then followed them outside. I wouldn't have followed him outside, dude, but you're younger. They all seemed amused as I asked Kelly, this is what you want? And she just opened the door and climbed into the back seat with the guy and she had just met, and they left. There you go. Actions. Her actions said everything about her level of respect for this guy, which was none. Love for this guy, which was none. This is a good thing this happened. Because imagine if he married this, because this is what it would be. This is what happens, guys, when women don't respect you. If they don't respect you, they don't love you. And not to mention when they're the influence of their a-hole friends, their effiness, and try to sabotage the relationship. This guy, good guy, but he was too giving to her. And there's just these little things of disrespect that just built up. You can't be that way if it's not being reciprocated. And if you're too nice, make her the center of your universe, do everything you can to make her happy, like you said, this is the type of crap you can possibly expect. Or worse. He said here, my first real girlfriend had burned me badly when I was 17 and left a party that we were at with another guy, embarrassing me in front of my friends and breaking my heart. I always regretted the way I handled it. That feeling came rushing back as they pulled out of the driveway, as the car faded out of sight. I could feel my love for her fading away. I knew at that moment it was over. Well, in my opinion, it was over a long time ago, but definitely it is over. Now, guys, is the fun part. Kelly waltzed in the door the next day at noon, and I already had her things moved out of our room. I told her she has 2 weeks to find a place to live. She acted like she had no idea why I was upset. Shocker. I said, it doesn't matter what you say at this point, we are done. I explained that it didn't matter what she did after she left last night, that the lack of respect was more than enough to call off the engagement. You're damn right. Good for you, brother. And I'm sure that wasn't easy. I'm sure you were brokenhearted and feeling stupid amongst many other things. But that's it. You can't marry someone like that that's treating you with that disrespect, especially in front of others. At that point, she started crying, said that those guys didn't even stay long. I was drunk and not thinking. How many times are people's bad behavior where they try to use the I was drunk excuse? Tough shit. And she says, I didn't think you were serious. There you go. because unfortunately this guy hadn't shown enough actions without him with the exception of him defending the whole "you're going to take my last name" thing. Clearly in this story, the way it was written, he didn't show her enough times, "Don't cross me," and that I am serious. I'm not someone to be toyed with. I told her that I was sorry about how things didn't work out between us, but our engagement was not something that I wanted to continue. She begged for 2 days and turned cold and made herself into the victim. Another big surprise. At the 2-week point, she was still in the house, so I posted an eviction notice on her door and removed the battery from my car that she had been driving. She was out the next day. I would still see her sometimes at work, but we never spoke again. I knew that if I stayed with her, that things would never be like they were before that night. Exactly. Exactly, man. Good for you. I'm sure that wasn't easy at the time, but finally, a lot of people, guys, can be pushed around and take a lot of crap, but everybody has that point. Well, that is it. And they ain't got to take that shit anymore, and they are done, and it is scorched earth. Now, this wasn't scorched earth, but this guy handled this really well, and I like that. Put your shit out there. I wouldn't even give her 2 weeks. I would have been like, your stuff's out in the driveway. See ya. Have a nice life. He may not have gotten that ring back, but get the point. But see, a lot of lessons in this story, guys, about respect. That's the biggest thing here. You can't do all these nice things if somebody doesn't do anything for you and expect them to... You can't... People are going to disrespect you. People will disrespect you if you don't have respect for yourself. If you don't respect yourself, you can't expect people to respect you. And this guy let a lot of shit slide. He was too giving, too nice. Again, he obviously thought, this is my fiance. We had such a great beginning, so everything will always be this way. He didn't have enough time to get to know her. That length of time before they moved in together, way too short. And the length of time before they got engaged, again, way too short. He didn't know any better, but these are things that I share in these stories to help guys see real-life examples where these dudes went wrong so they don't make the same mistakes, okay? And of course, I talk about, you always gotta watch out who your girl hangs out with, because right then and there, she's trying to sabotage the whole thing. But good job for you, and I liked how I didn't think you were serious. There you go. So guys, when you relationship guys have a girl, and you think she's the greatest thing ever, if you want to do nice things for her, that's fine. As long as it's being reciprocated. She's treating you well, and she's loyal, and she's got your back, amongst many other things. But if she's not doing that, then A, you shouldn't be with her, and B, you certainly shouldn't keep doing and giving and giving. Because there are a lot of people in this world that are takers, and they will take full advantage of you. And I think that's what's going on there, aside from the fact that she lost respect for this guy because he didn't draw a line in the sand permanently and lay out his boundaries and his expectations. That's the problem. Women can lose respect for guys like that. And once it's gone, it's very hard to get it back. And then bullshit will continue and get worse and worse and worse. So, great story, bro. I'm glad you handled that very well, just like a boss at the end. And I hope things are going well with you. Obviously, they are. And guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Give this guy a shout out for handling that thing very well at the end. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.